ahead and get started. Can everyone hear me okay in the back? I hate to be tied to the microphone. I'd rather move around a little bit. Okay in the back? Very good. Very good. So, we welcome you to this session. My name is Greg Marrow. I'm the CIO for Durham County Government. And today we're going to, I'll talk a little bit more about Durham County Government in a second, but I wanted to sort of kick off the session. I know I stand in between you and lunch, and so we want to get going. So we got a little bit of trivia to kind of get us going today. Does anybody recognize any of the numbers on the chart? Some of the pictures at the bottom might give you a hint.
The acute needle is obviously the prescription.
Good guess, but incorrect. I probably shouldn't tell you what the needle is, but okay, so we know what RX, right? But what does RX mean? No, it doesn't.
Receive.
Means what?
Receive.
Sleep?
Receive.
Recipe.
No, but receive in the communication board.
Ah. On the bottle, recipe. It's Latin for recipe. Any of the other numbers? Second best city in the United States to start a business. Bingo, Wilmington. Just voted in April last month. Yep.
Wow.
25 years. What? Sleep, exactly. Sleep. That's the average amount of time that we sleep over the course of our lifetime. 25 years. I'll say 35 times for life. 14 million?
Times your heart beats in a lifetime.
Oh, no. Good guess, though. A lot more than that. 14 million has to do with one of the pictures on the chart.
Smartphone.
iPhone. Nope. So 14 million is the expected number of iWatches that Apple plans to sell between now and September, the end of their fiscal year. Happy preach. Who's the leader, by the way, in selling smartphones? Who's way ahead of Apple? Amazon. In fact, Apple really doesn't even show up on the chart yet for smartphones. Okay, I think we're about done, right? 7.2 is the number of people in the world, counting children. 3 billion is an interesting number. Close. Those with access, yeah, that's close. If I had given away prizes, I'd give you a prize. This is the number of active internet users. 3 billion. And the last one, 35 tons. There you go, bingo. How much food you'll eat? Awesome. 35 tons. 39 cents? All right, so again, I'm from Durham County. Durham is often known for, the tastiest town in the South, right? We beat out Miami, we beat out Atlanta, we beat out New York City. So that's kind of what it's known for, but we have a lot of other accolades as well, right? So I'm not going to go through all of those, but it's a hot place to be right now. A lot of building going on, especially downtown. Turning it into sort of a suburban downtown area with people moving in downtown, skyscrapers going up. We've added 2 new hotels downtown. All of you are familiar with ballpark, and so now surrounding the ballpark is all of this development. All right, so I'll give you a few minutes to, so today we're talking about selling the value of IT to management. So this is a good, give you a few minutes to just kind of quickly read through this. Anyone resonate with this? Pretty universal. So this is kind of the challenge we have, right? Okay, copy. So, what we're going to talk about? Well, first we want to talk a little bit about, when we talk about selling the value of IT, we want to just kind of paint the, look at the landscape, look at the IT landscape, and talk about what it is that we're trying to sell, first of all. And then we want to, spend some time talking about the factors that affect selling IT, right? There's some things that really affect selling the value of IT to management. What are our challenges? And then we'll talk about some strategies that we can use to effectively sell IT to management. So let's talk about the IT landscape. So one of the things, when you look at the landscape, I think everyone would say that it's pretty complex. The stuff that we have to sell is pretty challenging, right? If you look at what's going on in the world today, in terms of moving from legacy, the landscape to the new world of IT, whether you're talking about, moving to the cloud, having to sell the value proposition or the benefits of doing that, or whether you're talking about moving from, just basic reporting to something like business intelligence, how do you sell that kind of technology to management, whether you're talking about mobility, whether you're talking about bringing more social into the mix. So just a lot of stuff that we have to sell. And there's some key drivers in terms of trends going on, right, in terms of IT innovation. As we said before, things like mobile, social, big data, the Internet of everything. These are things that are starting to capture the bulk of the conversation, right? And a lot of department heads that I deal with, they're always asking, what is this cloud thing, right? Because they may hear this terminology, what is cloud? And they're always pulling out the mobile device and what's going on with mobile? How do we do more with mobile? And so these are a lot of things that we have to sell, a lot of technologies that we have to deal with. One of the exciting things is this whole concept of Internet of Everything, right? So I was reading recently where one government agency has outfitted all of their conference rooms with sensors. So now that they can remotely tell, when a conference room is full across the enterprise. And so they're beginning to move into this space of Internet of Everything, connecting everything to the Internet, right? And there are tons of examples, other examples out there. Another recent one I read is an athlete, when they pick up his water bottle, at an event, the coaches on the sideline can tell how hydrated that athlete is just by the fact that that athlete is picking it up and holding the bottle. It's already been outfitted with sensors. So these are the kinds of things that we will begin to see move into government. And how do we sell the value of this kind of technology, connecting everything to the Internet? When we look at some of you may be looking at open data or starting to consider open data. If you look at what McKinsey is saying that there's $3 trillion a year in value that can be unlocked by the smarter use of just open data, by opening up, making more transparent your data within your agency, right? And so, again, how do you sell that? BI, performance management. This is something that's hot for us. Our new county manager constantly talks about performance management, and measuring, right? How do I see what's going on across the enterprise? And so he's pointing to what kind of BI tools are we going to have in place, et cetera, et cetera. So the question for me and the challenge for me is, how do I sell when I go back and start talking about, okay, here's what it's going to cost to do these kinds of things that we want to do. How do I sell that? And if you just look at social alone, right, you just look at, as we said before, total population about 7 billion people. You look at active internet users, and these numbers are constantly growing, about 3 billion active internet users. If you look at active social media accounts, about 2 billion. And these numbers, again, as I said before, if you look year over year, the compound annual growth is just skyrocketing, right? So the new millennials, this is the kind of stuff that sort of becomes, they expect. Unique mobile users, active mobile social accounts. So these are pretty big numbers. So that tells us that these are not fads. When I talk to department heads and they say, oh, I don't know if we really need that. I have to reinforce that this is not going away anytime soon. Right? More and more users are beginning to adopt. We're seeing more and more of this technology within the enterprise. And so I think it's fair to say, this is an exciting time to be in information technology. A lot of great things going on, but how do you sell all this stuff, right? If you look at software, software is an interesting area. Everything will be built around programming. I was listening to a car manufacturer talk about the challenge that they have finding programmers. Because now they're concerned with IT security. Some of you may have seen the report on 2020 where someone, they did a little exercise where someone was able to go in, hack into the car, take over the brakes, take over the steering. All right? And so now, even in the auto field, software programming is becoming huge. For programmers. So again, we're seeing IT all across the board. And so I think you would agree. This is data from CIO. Many of you are familiar with CIO magazine. They do an annual report every year. This is 2015 data, and they basically say if you look at the role, and I like to say if you look at the role of IT, most CIOs agree that the role is getting a lot more challenging because of all of those different technologies coming down the pipe. How do we deal with those technologies? How do we sell those technologies? And more importantly, how do we align those technologies with the business, right? The business goals. So that's kind of the IT landscape. A lot going on, right? And now we want to spend some time talking about factors that affect the selling process. Now this may not be in all cases, but this is kind of general. And so perception matters, right? How business leaders perceive the IT movement. So this is an interesting chart. What this is saying is that still over 50% of business leaders still view the IT organization as either a service provider or simply a cost center. So we have to ask ourselves, where do we fall in that mix? And the reason for that is because that depends on how easy it's going to be to sell the value of IT, or how challenging it's going to be to sell the value of IT, depending on where you believe you fit within the chart. If you fit within that as a business leader, then that means you're pretty aligned with the business, which we'll talk a little bit more about. And so selling the value of IT in that case might be a lot easier than if you're viewed as simply a cost center. Another factor that affects selling the value of IT is where do you report within the organization? It's still, as you can see, still under 50% of organizations report to the head of the business. So again, depending on where you report to, depends on how difficult it's going to be to sell the value of IT. Now, the School of Government, it will tell you that the best place to be is either reporting to, either the county manager or one of the deputies, so that you're right there in the executive leadership team meetings. You're right there in the mix with all the other department heads. You're viewed as a colleague sitting right there at the table, right? So that you can begin to affect business goals, business direction. Okay. And lastly, this is an interesting chart in that business colleagues were asked, do you agree with the following? And the first two numbers caught me by surprise, and particularly those in the middle of the chart, right? So 54% of business leaders agree that non-IT departments view the IT groups as an obstacle to their mission. And that's quite interesting, right? Now, if you're viewed as an obstacle to the business mission, you can imagine how difficult it's going to be to sell the value of IT to management, if you fall into that category. Right? Not going to go through all the other numbers, but you can see that these are the challenges associated with selling the value of IT. Where you sit within the organization, how you're viewed within the organization, the perception of IT within the organization, whether you're a cost center, whether you are aligned with the business, all of these things affect selling the value of IT. So when we talk about our challenges, now these are just a summary of the challenges that we face, right? So again, what does IT mean to executives within the organization? Again, some executives think of IT as simply what? Just a cost center. How many of us would fall into that category? Good. Excellent. What about some executives, and I've heard this over the course of my career, IT simply does not know the business. They don't know the business that we're in, so they don't see us adding any value, right? We're just there to, make the email system run, the wireless connections up and running, so that I can do my job, right? And that's pretty much it. That's really the only value that they see coming out of the IT organization. Some executives think that IT is the biggest bottleneck in the company. I've worked places where, I've actually been in IT organizations where we were viewed as, the biggest bottleneck. Why do you think we were viewed like that?
People have to go through IT to make the purchases.
Exactly. You got to go through IT to make your purchases. What else?
I feel like IT stops them from just doing stuff. So it's like, why do I have to ask you? Why do I have to ask you before I can load the software for my permanent report? Why do I have to go through you to, make sure my internet is working, to add my mobile phone to my email account? So it feels like that is a conduit of prohibiting.
Yes.
They don't always understand why.
That's right. Bottleneck, right?
I think that's the biggest thing for us. We have to enforce rules that we didn't make. So we're trying to take the hit for things that we don't have any control over.
Yep.
Or they don't understand the organizational direction, because if you implement a project citywide or
Yes.
statewide, they want their own silo of this application.
That's right. All of these are, all great examples of why and how sometimes IT is viewed as a bottleneck, right? What are some other examples associated with projects?
Sometimes you have different people that view a project in a different way, and each one's not wrong, but you as IT have to draw a circle around all of them.
Yes. Yep. What about the projects? What's the percentage of projects that are not failures? How many projects really meet their goals? What percentage of projects really meet their goals?
Less than 30%.
Less than 30%. That means that there's a very high percentage of projects that what? That fail, right? Bottleneck. What about speak one language? These are challenges that we face as an organization, right? We speak one language, and that language is what? Alphabet soup, right? And some organizations view us as simply a service desk or a help desk. And some organizations think of IT as simply as, when I need to place an order, you're my procurement center. Now, I've been in over the course of my career, I've been in organizations where all of this was random. So those are the challenges. Well, there's some good news. I'm not trying to paint a bad picture, right? There is some good news. And the good news is that as I move around and I talk to people today, I am finding that IT is becoming, a partner with the business. More and more organizations are seeing IT now as a partner, a business partner. Why? Because it's hard to do anything now without IT being at the table. Right? It's hard to get anything done unless IT is at the table. Okay? IT processes and procedures are maturing. What do we mean by that? Processes and procedures are maturing. Paying more attention to IT processes and procedures, like security. All right. What else? How many of you have very mature IT processes and procedures now? And what would be an example of one?
That's like a procedure that's just been around for a while,
Yes.
so it's mature.
Yes.
Backups,
Patch, how you perform, right? Those kinds of things. What about your service desk, your help desk? Service agreements, service level agreements, SLAs. Alphabet soup, right? And IT, powerful catalyst for change in business. And it's becoming an investment, not necessarily an expense or just a what? Just a cost center, right? It is becoming an investment. Are you beginning to see these kinds of things in your enterprise? So this is good news. We are, kind of moving up the poles, right? The challenge is what? Aligning the business with IT. This is the challenge. And what do we mean by that? How many of us in the room feel that we are really aligned with the business? Our IT organizations are really aligned with the business. We're all moving in the same direction. I see some heads, no.
Right, and with some of our departments.
Very good.
We've got dialogues with some departments and other departments that are basically on that, call us, we're calling MS. So we're expanding that when we grow out from there.
Okay.
We have the partnerships with.
So we're talking about selling the value of IT to management. I would say that there's one thing that you got to get right, and that would be this. Because if you're not in the boat, if you're not aligned, then it's going to be very challenging, right? And I've been both places. I've been in the water, treading water, and trying to catch up to the boat. And in some cases, I've actually been in the boat. And I know that feeling, what it feels like to be aligned with the business. So when we talk about alignment, right? We're really talking about understanding those drivers coming out of the business. So what's driving the health department, as an example, to want to do something different, something new that they haven't done before? So if I understand those drivers, right, then I can begin to help by suggesting some enablers, right? So I can begin to align with the health department if I understand what those business drivers are. Now, the only way to understand those business drivers, what's the only way to understand those business drivers? Communications, right? So what else? You got to be at the what? You got to be at the table, right? So I heard you say some departments are like, kind of go away, we'll call you, right? We really want to flip that. We want to be in a position where we can flip it, right? We really want to be a business partner. Okay? Now, it's hard because some department heads, they don't understand that. They don't understand the value of having IT sitting at the table, right? So we got some work to do there as well. Okay? So if I understand those drivers, I can begin to enable, I can begin to align IT with those drivers coming out. But if the drivers are up here and I'm doing like this, we're just missing each other. Okay. Again, we're talking about selling the value of IT to management. These are all things that go into selling that value. And we talked about moving up the value chain, right? So if we're still down at where IT is viewed as strictly, it's strictly a technology infrastructure. You guys, you plan, all you do is just deal with technology infrastructure. They don't really see the value of the services you provide, and you're pretty much at the very bottom in terms of influence of the business. You're pretty much at the bottom, right? You're technology focused. And if you're technology focused, then when you do get that opportunity to come to the table, it really becomes hard, right? Because the first reaction is, well, I don't understand anything you're talking about. Right? I don't understand technology. I don't have a clue what those acronyms mean. And I don't have time to learn. If you're service focused but no one really understands your services, then that's a problem. How many of us have a very simple service catalog that explains what it is what services we provide? What are the 10 services your organization provides to the business? Not 50, not 40, not 30. What are the 10 services you provide or less? Now I know if you start counting, you're up in the. I know you're way up past 10. Where we really want to be is back to aligning with the business, right? Having that business focus, right? In terms of influence, we want to be at that level, right? Where we're really working with the other department heads, and they see us as a partner. Okay. So, back to the balloon guy. Now that we are aligned with the business, back to the balloon guy. So what did in this example, what was the E guy able to do?
Provide solutions that the person needing it.
Exactly. Add a lot more value than the first time, right? So I'll give you an example. We're going through so we run for our ERP, we run SAP. For this audience, I can use acronyms. So we run SAP, but the HR organization is, they just can't get with SAP. Too complex, too difficult, and so one of the first things I did when I've been with Durham County now for about 18 months, right? And I realized when I was applying for the job, it took me about 4 hours. to go through the online process. I knew there was a problem. And lo and behold, one of the complaints we hear over and over again is how difficult it is to go online and apply for a job. And so I had a conversation with the HR director, and I said, this process just does not work. Well, bottom line is, so what do we need to do, right? So just by asking the question, what do we need to do, we're starting to form that what? We're starting to form that partnership. And so today we're moving to a new platform, something called Success Factors, which is a company that was recently bought by SAP, with the goal to make the process a lot easier in terms of applying for a job. Now here's an interesting challenge, right? So I said to the director, you write up the project charter. So the project charter, we use just a very simple 2-page, very easy, just write down the business goals. But write it in English speak. Don't get into all of the technical issues with the current system. Just write what you think we need to do from a business. Do you know that was very, very difficult for the HR organization? To write in business speak the need to move from one to the other, right? So again, even some organizations may even have a problem stepping out of their technical lingo and writing something in business speak. Okay, so what are some of the strategies for success? Well, what's the very first thing you have to have right before you can sell anything to management from an IT perspective? If you don't get this right, you can forget about it.
You have to have trust first.
Trust? What else?
You have to be able to convince management of what the deliverable is going to be and what the benefit of the
True. Got to be able to convince. Benefits, value, proposition, yes. Same vision.
It's got to fix the problem.
Say that again.
It's got to fix the problem.
Got to fix the problem? Yes. All of these are correct answers. But what if email is not working great? IT operations got to be, first IT operations got to be together, right? If your county manager is still having email problems, you forget about selling anything else to the right? This is a hard lesson I learned many years ago, right? We didn't have our IT Operations Act together. Yet we wanted all these dollars to do great. Oh, we're going to bring in new technology. We're going to just and still have an email problem. So if your IT operations is not on point, you can forget about it. It becomes difficult. I would just say it becomes difficult to sell the value of anything else if you have basic problems with IT operations. So a good starting point is your IT operations got to be in place. Okay. Now once that's in place, you can begin to execute some of these strategies. And one is, first of all, you have to understand your stakeholders, right? So who are you trying to sell to? And I see this mistake over and over and over in organizations. We don't understand who our stakeholders are. Right? And what is it that, when we say sell the value, what is it that they're looking for in terms of value? Not everyone is looking for the same thing. Not everyone appeals to metrics. Right? I see many times where we'll put a presentation together and say, we're ready to go. And we haven't had one conversation yet about who we're pitching to. All right, so you got to understand your stakeholders. We talked about alignment. Alignment is critical. Focus on the business need, the business goal. So anytime I'm working on a project or doing something new, I tie it to what? I tie it to a business goal or a business need, right? So if I want to do internet, if I want to get into the internet of everything, right? If I want to tie conference rooms to the internet, I have to think strategically about, okay, what strategic goal can I tie that to? Right? What business goal can I tie that to in order to get buy-in for that initiative? Right? I have to communicate effectively, and we talked about that, right? So I have to turn off, here, as I said before, with this audience, I can turn on my my technical jargon, and I can throw out acronyms. But with that audience, I have to turn that off, right? I have to speak common language. Right? Matter of fact, I don't even, very seldom try not to use the term technology. Because sometimes when you just throw out the word technology, people do what? Turn off. Because they don't understand it, right? So now when we talk about, I'll give you a great example. So we had to take this product called Success Factors to the Board of Commissioners and get approval. What do you think I talked about? Nowhere in the presentation did I talk about technology. All I talked about was what? Making applying for jobs easier, right? Talked about the onboarding process, making that a lot easier for you. Nowhere was technology ever part of the conversation until it came down to what does it cost. But by that time, it was like, what do I say? Right? Because they knew that these were business issues, business problems that we have. Service technology value, right? Do we articulate the value? And again, I go back to the example. I could have talked about success factors, and I could have talked about technology and the fact that it has analytics built in, and you'll be able to see how many people apply for jobs. Stayed away from all of that. Again, just talked about the value that we were getting from the solution. Exert influence. What do we mean by that? In other words, do you have to do all the selling? No. Let somebody else do it for you, right? Exert your influence, right? So in the case of the HR example, right? So I wasn't the only one standing at the podium. Matter of fact, most of the talking was done by the HR director. Yes.
As you know, in our organization, you always have some folks who are early adopters.
Yes.
And those are the ones I generally go after first to get them on board and let them go talk to other folks. Some people who just don't want change. So.
Yep. What's another strategy? We're talking about understanding your stakeholders. So here's another strategy that I've used in my work, right? So take the county manager as an example. I know exactly who is the county manager's buddy. Social engineering, right? So the first thing I do is I sell that person. And once I get that person on board, that person is with me in the meeting. And 9 times out of 10, that person is doing the talking for me. And they're talking about the value. And I'm just here kind of hitting them under the table saying, go, keep going. Right. So exert influence. Gain buy-in. How many of you have worked on a project where half bought in, the other half was still on the fence? Right? It's not good. Not going in. So if you want to sell the value of IT, everyone has to be on the same page. Right? You got some work to do if everyone is not on the same page. Because all it takes is for the person who's on the fence to walk in the building the same time the person you're trying to sell the value to get on the elevator together, and they have a 30-second conversation. That's all it takes. I've seen it happen. Business sponsor? What do you mean by business sponsor? All projects should have a sponsor, right? Now, does IT do projects? Does IT sponsor projects? No. There should be no projects that IT sponsors.
Well, there are some like backups, like,
Is that a project?
could be, if you roll in a new SAN, it's not really sponsored by anybody but IT. It's so cross-organizational that if we rolled in a new SAN, we didn't have body plan.
So I'm rolling in a new SAN, I'm doing it because of what? Because of a business need, more than likely, right? So I can tie that back to the business, right? I can tie almost everything I'm doing back to a business need.
But we didn't have a specific sponsor in that case, so it was so
Understand.
cross-organizational.
Understand? Yep. You're really talking about what Mickey is talking about is what about those operational kinds of things, right? You're exactly right. Yeah. We're talking about projects. So you take on a new project. You're going to take on a new project. That project should have a business sponsor.
That kind of goes back to number 5, is way up.
Yes. So we're doing open data,
Where you located at?
all right? So I look around the county and say, oh, who's going to sponsor open data? So we had to get county manager bought into that to become the business sponsor. Some things are not, some things are not very clear. Okay, who's going to be the sponsor? But you got to have a business sponsor. Okay?
For us in the community college, we do have some things that are handed down to us from the state office that says we just have to do it.
Absolutely. So within your portfolio, right? So here's a great example, right? So my executive knows my 3 portfolios. One of my portfolios is entitled mandatory. So I have a mandatory portfolio. So anything I do that falls into that category, they know that it's coming from either, state agency or somewhere, right? But they understand I have that portfolio. As opposed to not understanding that, walking in and saying, I need resources to do this, and then getting into the whole conversation about why and So I've already set the expectation right up front that I got 3 portfolios. One of them is entitled mandatory. And I may need dollars during my budget. I may ask for dollars to go into to do mandatory projects. Okay. Setting expectations. We talked. We skipped metrics, but the thing I see with metrics is great, right? Many times you do have to have metrics, right? But you got to be careful not to do what? Overdo it, overkill, right? And depending on who you're selling to, what if that person is a feely, touchy? We just did Myers-Briggs thing. What if they're not an N, but they're more of a P? Metrics work for that person? So these are the kinds of things, when you really got an important project you need budget dollars for, you really got to do your own, right? Know who you're selling to and what's going to work to help you make the sale. Right? Okay? I say always sell. What do I mean by that? So, I'll give you an example, right? So I'm part of the executive leadership team, right? And in that meeting, I'm always what? I'm always selling, right? If I know I'm going to do something 6 months from now, I'm kind of throwing out right now little bits and pieces. I'm always selling, right? I go to the department head meeting. Almost every other department head meeting, I'm on the agenda talking about something. What am I doing? I'm selling. Right? When I meet one-on-one with department heads, even if it has nothing to do with new projects, do anything. It may be old business, maybe a problem, maybe a personnel problem. I'm still selling. My message is, you're always selling, right? So we have to remember that we're always selling. We're always selling the value. And we always want to use those touch points to always sell the value of IT. Anytime you're meeting with someone outside of IT, use that opportunity to sell the value of IT. So we've covered all of that. And we're getting down to the end. There's one more thing that's very important. And this is what they teach you in sales school. What do you think that one thing you got to have? So we went through all of this great stuff, right? We're talking about selling. Now I want you to think about a vendor selling to you. Trust. Right? That last thing is, trust is key. If you're, the head of Health and Human Services, if they don't trust you, right, then you got a problem. Right? So you got to build that trust, right? And trust is not something you can turn the switch on and all of a sudden, you're trusted, right? And so the reason why I'm always selling is I'm always trying to do what? I'm always trying to build that trust. And it's not an overnight process. It takes time to build that trust, right? When I get an opportunity, if I'm walking in the building and I see a county commissioner, I intentionally do what? Try to intentionally
You start selling?
start selling, yes. But really what I'm doing is building that trust so that when I go in front of the board, they know that this person is consistent, not selling us right? So I've established that trust.
This is based on the services you're providing.
Yes.
Services that are up to date and working.
Yes,
Then people believe you when you say something.
exactly right. And that's why I go back to what do we say? The number one thing first is your IT operations got to be together, right? That's where you can establish the trust. Right? We got some time for questions.
Does that mean that people who you are leading need to trust you?
Yes, that's exactly right. You got to have good followers. People got to believe in you, right? So, that's something else that can kill the opportunity to sell the value of IT, right? And so, I've seen this happen in many organizations, right? So now, let's say one of my folks. So we just rolled out Office 365, right? And I had Vicky is in my organization, right? So one of the things I've said to all of you, that we all got to be on the same page. And what I mean by that. So, here's something I've seen happen. One of your folks get on the elevator with someone who doesn't work in IT. And they say to the person, the person says, I'm having problems with that piece of technology that you guys rolled out. And then your folks say what? And that's, I know it sucks. That's a killer. For the entire organization, to your point. That doesn't help with selling the value of IT. Right? When your own folks kill it themselves, right? So that's just one example. I can go through tons of things that can cause selling the value to go haywire. Any other comments? Many successes. Some of you have had successes selling the value of IT. What works for you?
I think as a leader, the leader needs to provide everything that's required for services to be up to date with their followers.
Yes.
So the followers can do a good job. So if the leader is going and counseling something outside, but followers don't have enough material to do what's needed,
Yep.
then you can pay.
Yes. Yes, sir?
When an IT has their service house in order and they're trying to take it to the next level, and approaching management, the manager says, but no one's complaining. And you want to take it higher than the service level. And it's like, well, I'm not getting any complaints. You're doing a great job. That's more that we want to do more, than just be the service department. How do you meet that challenge?
So great question. Did everybody hear the question? Right? So you're at a certain level in your service, but you want to take it to the next level. The person responds and says, but you're not having any problem. It works fine. So what do you have to do then? Anyone? You have to sell the innovation. Exactly. You got to sell the innovation. You got to sell the benefits of moving to the, and what that's going to do for the business. Forget about that. Yeah, that's working fine today, right? And now we want to move the business forward for these reasons. And those reasons are tied to business goals. I have some services that we provide today that I could move to the next level, but it's not really going to do anything for the, it'd be kind of cool. It's a cool technology project, right? It's not going to do anything for the business.
I actually changed a lot of metrics on how we're measuring ourselves.
Yes.
Stuff like reporting on how many help desk tickets you closed. I found that they don't care.
No.
It really doesn't tell them anything. They really don't care in the first place. So
Yep.
I think in a lot of ways we were doing ourselves harm because we weren't giving them the kind of metrics that tied back to the business that said that we were in fact adding value.
That's
But
right.
we weren't measuring ourselves against the right things.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So you brought up a good point about metrics, right? So I just went through our budget presentation, and this year I walked in with one slide. That's all I had. One slide. And I'm not bragging, right? I'm not bragging, and I'm happy to share the one slide, by the way. The county manager said at the end of the presentation, this was the best summary of a budget request I've ever seen. I didn't overwhelm with technology trends. I didn't overwhelm with metrics. I had 3 important metrics that I could tie back to an industry metric. One was the amount of money we spend per employee on IT. And I tied that to what other government agencies spend on employees. And ours was about half that. So that was an eye-opener. So very easy, right? Didn't say anything about healthcare tickets and all. To your point. Okay, go. Okay. Good job. So that was a very easy metric. Made sense, right? And then talked about the amount of dollars that we spend on IT compared to other organizations of our size and with our general fund budget. And we're about half that. Yeah. Very simple metrics, very easy metrics. Because really, if you think about it, budget presentation, it really comes down to that kind of conversation.
But just to follow up, though, because the other thing that we did is we really, going back to the point of sponsorship.
Yes.
What I found also was that we were doing a lot of projects that were making other departments more efficient, but the other departments were taking the credit, if you will.
Yes.
So it seemed like they were doing such a great job, but if it weren't for the fact that we were doing it together, it wouldn't happen in the first place. But again, we were reporting against the wrong thing.
Yes.
They would report how they were able to reduce this, that, or the other thing, but we didn't have anything on our side that kind of tied into that, showing how we were adding that value.
Yeah. Good point. I can give you some tips on that. Still the time. Any other comments? Yes.
Sometimes because I work for a community college and they have to do engineering work there. And sometimes the back engine costs a lot of money. I tell them that IT is like a cruise ship. That there's a lot, we can't turn on a dime.
Yes.
That we have to do a lot of things in the background. If they want to be here by this certain time, then we have to do all this in the background. They seem to kind of grasp that idea. That a cruise ship, you know, is fun and that we're going to go where we want to go, but we have to plan ahead to do that.
So I worked in higher ed for about 10 years. And I know in that environment what it can be like. And so one of the things that helped is governance, right? Bringing the right folks at the table and talking about planning, right? 6 months out, 1 year out, 2 years out, what we're going to need as an organization, as a business. That's important too, that whole governance process. You gotta have a way to get requirements in early so that you can do some of the things that we don't. Yes.
Can you give us some tips on performance evaluation?
Performance evaluations for IT, how do you measure it? So again, it depends upon your business, right, and what's important to your business. You know, I gave you some examples of, you know, metrics that I use, right? And so I do have operational metrics, right? Because I have to have those metrics in order to, you know, when I sit with people that report to me and talk about the performance of the organization. So I have operational metrics, right? And I have project metrics, right? I have, you know, as an example, I have metrics that tell me what projects are planned and what projects get into the portfolio that are unplanned, right? And and this is an interesting one, right? If you have more projects in your portfolio that are unplanned than planned, what does that tell me?
For planning.
Or planning, and what else does it tell me?
You may not know your business.
Don't know your business, and what else? That you're pretty much what? Reactive.
You're not being at the very beginning of the process.
Exactly. Right? You're totally reactive, right? And if you keep that model up, you know, you're either gonna get a lot of gray hair, all right? You're gonna be stressed out. It's gonna cause a number of issues. So I use things like that, right? To help with performance, overall IT performance. And I try to keep it very simple. You know, again, one page. I don't like, you know, tons and tons of metrics. Now, my operations guy may say, yeah, he has tons and tons of metrics because he's running an operations business, right? But when we boil it up and bring it up, we keep that very simple. I have governance metrics. How many times do we come together as an organization, department heads? What are the outcomes of that? What are the outcomes we're searching for out of that governance meeting? And how well does that affect our strategic plan? Yes?
And then the other one we got rid of was uptime.
Uptime.
Uptime. Because for us, it doesn't, you could be up all the time, but if you're down during the time of registration, the 99% of the time that you were up doesn't really matter. So for us, uptime really didn't help us a whole lot either because it really depended on, you know, what was going on at the time.
Yeah, in higher ed, you know, as I said before, in higher ed, that's the one time that can cause you to lose your job. Been there, done that. So you're right, uptime. Uptime is important for some people in the organization, but
they're already expected. They already expect the system.
Exactly. It's like you walk into a conference room and hit the lights, you expect the lights to do what? You pick up your telephone, you expect to hear what?
Not a dial tone anymore.
Not a dial tone anymore.
So what are some, or maybe you could give some more specific examples of, you said you changed some of those metrics, but didn't really elaborate on what?
What we did is instead of just saying uptime, what we said is that because our systems were up, we were able to do this. Or because we avoided this, we were able to do that. So that they can see how it actually allows us to do something instead of just being up.
And another example might be, so again, you know, we have all of those metrics as well, but we try to use metrics that people can really relate to, right? So here's one that, you know, again, I used with our county manager in budget review. I said, you know, 85% of the email we get is spam. Right? And he can relate to that, right? So when I talk about security and talk about the need to invest more money in security, here's the reason why, right? And oh, by the way, you know, that number is increasing, right? We get from 85 to 90, almost 95% of the email we get is just people trying to get your credentials. He could relate to that. That was an easier metric to relate to as opposed to, yep, we got 99% uptime. So he can relate to that metric, he can relate to the amount of money we spend on IT, he can relate to how we compare to other organizations around the state, around the country, right? Those kinds of things were easily...
Please remember, all members, to come down to Salon A, B, C. Outside, we are serving lunch currently, and we'll be moving in for the business luncheon in the next few minutes. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay.